Every week we do a Q&A with interesting and accomplished members of the adaptive community to find how they persevered, how they innovated, how they built communities, and how they found solutions. Welcome to the Nametags Chat Podcast. Welcome to the Nametags Chat Podcast, where we talk with interesting and accomplished members of the adaptive community. Today we have Manny Guerra. Did I do that right? And I roll my R's right? I don't know.
I like that. That was a good attempt.
That was a good attempt. All right, good attempt. Okay, that's anyway. We'll get on. As you can see, Manny's quite a personality. Gold medalist, hockey player from Salt Lake City, bronze in Torino, recent inductee into the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee Hall of Fame, which was just 2 weeks ago. Manny, welcome and congratulations.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me today.
This is amazing. So not only were you inducted, but you were actually the guy who got up there and talked and represented the whole team. How did that work? I mean, you were the goalie, right? Is it the goalie that they defer to? Well, you weren't the captain. How did you end up being the guy who got up and talked?
Yeah, so, in hockey, at least when I played, right, the goalies could never be captains in IHF rules, right? So I was a figurehead, even though I wasn't officially a captain, I was a captain, right? So the guys know I have the gift of gab. To your point, I'm kind of a personality, so they they actually voted on it, right? So Rick, our coach, Rick Middleton, former Bruin, said, hey, we're going to vote on it, but my vote's for Manny, right? So he kind of set the tone, right? And we just went with it. Everybody knows, and I think, to your point, Chris, right? It's when you're up there, it's not a personal speech. It's not like I can talk, I talk about my experience and my parents and my family and what they did to support me. It has to be balanced. So it took me 3-4 days to figure it out, right? To kind of just go back. I have the history with sport going all the way back to its inception in 1990. So I just whittled through all the people that were important that kind of made the game, brought it to the next level, right? So once I got some rhythm and figured out how much time I had, I just went with it. And so, yeah.
What did that feel like, though? Because, I mean, you're there, you guys are there as your team, and we're going to talk about the journey that you guys had as a team, but you're there with Michael Phelps, who won more Olympic medals than anybody else, Trisha Zorn, who won more Paralympic medals than anybody else, Michelle Kwan, Mia Hamm, Lindsey Vonn, Dave Kiley, like 3 different Paralympic sports. You're dropped in. I was passing out some of the awards, and I was passing out some of the awards with Dorothy Hamill. People still know that haircut, right? You were surrounded by all this. What did that feel like for you?
And Muffy Davis, don't forget.
And Muffy Davis, yeah.
It's just, to be honest, when we got selected as nominees in the team category, I didn't realize who the class was. And once I read the details, Billie Jean King, right? Then you got, what's her name? Coach, Pat Summitt.
Pat Summitt, yeah, exactly.
So, Billie Jean King for me is a legend, right? So I read the list and I just kind of went, wow, it's like my mouth just dropped open. I'm like, holy criminy, that's crazy. So I think it just proves that what we did was something very special. It's an underdog story, and it just kind of lends credibility to what that meant at the time, 20 years ago, to the sport of sled hockey, right? The spark that they say, the spark that started the fire, right? It started all these grassroots programs all over the country. But for me personally, it was surreal. It brought me back to think about my parents, the sacrifices. And when I say sacrifice, I mean literal sacrifice. My mom died a week after I was born, and I was the root cause. I was not supposed to be around. So to have my dad remarry and have my stepmom kind of work through my disability at a young age and be
polio,
that,
right?
Yeah, polio. I contracted polio in. So when my mom died, I ended up in Mexico for a quick jaunt while my dad got the house in order, and so they I can't prove it, but I was exposed to the virus probably there, and then contracted it and then came back once my dad found out. But so anyways, you get all these feelings, all these people that were in your life that brought you to this moment, and it's kind of indescribable, to have your legacy etched along with that class. Too bad my parents are around, but to have my family, my kids experience that, my friends experience that. I'm still getting hit up on social media with congratulations, and it's humbling. It really is. It's just there's no words to describe that those feelings. Probably a bunch of words, but yeah, it's crazy.
You said you were there from the beginning.
Yeah.
You guys as a team were not supposed to be there in 2002. You were there because the US was hosting the games.
Correct. Yeah. So 2 years
You were the bad news bears, really. I mean, you guys
we
won international competition before running the table in Salt Lake, right?
Yeah, if I think back, we just didn't have the depth that other countries had in the experience. That's really what it comes down to. We had several coaches, right? We had our coach in 1998, and it's crazy to think that just 4 years prior to that, right? You were in Nagano, Japan, our first Paralympics. We had a coach by the name of Angelo Bianco who brought us to that next level. I think we came in 5th out of 6 teams. And then to have just, transport yourself 4 years later, and you have, Angelo resign 2 years prior in Salt Lake at the World Championships in 2000. We came in last, and it was a mess. We didn't have the right athletes. We didn't have the right system. And so for 2 years, there was clubs that were around the country, and one club in particular, which I was a member of at one time, the RSC Blackhawks, really put resources into that program, and they developed and were able to attract some really good athletes. So just in that 2-year gap, we grabbed some additional athletes that were incredible.
So this is in Chicago then?
Yes, correct. So 8 or 9 of the players on the Paralympic team were Blackhawk, club players. I had resigned the year prior, but it was refreshing to have a program put financial resources into it to get the right equipment, to get ice time, which was a premium. I used to fly down to Chicago just to skate on the weekends, right, and get as much ice time as I could with that club team. So it started taking shape, so after coming in last in 2000, that was not a good feeling. What I do remember is the people of Salt Lake City, as we were leaving the arena, were patting us on the back and just saying, hey, keep your head up. You can't you're going to go up from here, right? You can't get any lower. And I remember that distinctly. All the volunteers, they were just superb humans. And then to have the right athletes all of a sudden show up, to have Angelo resign, to look for a new coach, Rich DeGlopper, our team manager, the architect, worked with John Schatzline, who was alive at the time, the founder of the sport, to kind of work out, how are we going to select and what's going to be the makeup of the 2002 team. And then we started making equipment changes around the same time. So it literally, and then
what do you mean by equipment changes?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've always talked about and we tested was most skating systems under a sled were 3.5 inches to 3 inches apart. So if you can imagine, you have 2 blades that are this far apart. So to get up on edge takes a lot more energy, right?
It'd be a lot further over in order.
Correct. So what we did is we brought it down to an edge, and that created this. So with 9/11 happening, and us not, and the other thing that's amazing, we didn't travel anywhere. We didn't play anybody in 2000 leading up to 2002. 9/11 happened. We shut down for a year. We just did camps. We didn't play nobody else, right? And so to not have any live competition until you get to Salt Lake was nuts, right? Unheard of.
Do you have any idea how good you were or how good you weren't going in?
I knew we were going to be good. Did I know we were going to, make that run? No. I believe we could make it, but it wasn't until we played Norway that I think it was game 2. I think we won 2-1. I mean, to me, I looked at Norway as a powerhouse. I've been playing them since 1990. So
And they
for
won in 98 in Nagano.
correct. Yeah. So for 12 years, I'm chomping at the bit, and I know that's the team that we need to get over. So making that equipment change, I knew that was going to be a big eye opener, right? And so actually, I'm actually glad we did it when we did it, because nobody saw it. It was within the rules. There's nothing wrong with it. Anybody could have done it, but we were the first team to do it. And so, yeah, the rest is history. Once we made that change, now everybody does it. If not, maybe even a half inch or even closer now. But that was, to me, was a big technical
What
change
does
that we
that
made.
do as a difference? The equipment change,
Yeah.
because it's not doing your straight ahead speed, right?
No, it's just your lateral, your maneuverability from left to right, to be able to get around somebody, right, to get up on edge quicker than he can. So,
And is this paras and amputees who are doing it?
yeah, we had pairs on our O2 team. Yeah, so these are both. Granted, the pairs may have not gone down to an inch, right, as aggressive, but they may have gone down to 2 3/4, or maybe a half inch, less, whatever their preference was, right? So whatever we had a couple of kits where we could test. We had 3, 2.5, and went all the way down to 1 inch. So we could take that skate system and put it on, and the person could try it out and see where their comfort level was, right?
What's your setup like as
Mine
a
is
goalie?
mine is completely different. Mine is like a Frankenstein. The funny part is I'm a techie guy, so I look at solutions and try to work smarter, not harder. So as a goalie, first of all, you have no lateral movement, just front and back. You have on the outside of the glove, like your catcher's glove. I had when I first started playing in the 90s, I had like bolts coming through, literally like bolts, and then I would just hacksaw the tip so that it creates some sort of spike, right?
So you can maneuver yourself on the
Yeah,
ice.
so I can use the back side of the hand and grab the left side of the ice, and then on the right side of my hand, I had a goalie stick with some picks on it, and so I was able to pivot, and then go forward and come back with my legs crossed, shorten the sled and all that. But it wasn't until
What about underneath the sled? I mean, so often in hockey we hear 5-hole, right?
yeah, so there wasn't really a 5-hole, because you're 3.5 inches off the ice, and so you have your skate system, and you have the front of the sled, which is like a U-piece shape of aluminum that sits about a half inch off the ice. It's just a touch point, so it really doesn't touch the ice. But you could still get it under. I mean, you could still shove it, a flat side puck, even a rolling puck could get under. And now the rules have changed, but that's a whole nother conversation. So what I started doing is I took a track shoe, like a Nike track shoe, and cut the sole all the way down to the plastic, and then I cut the front sole in half, and then I actually created holes in that track shoe, which had the picks already aligned and holed out. And then I just would simply sew it onto the backside, and then I would just screw my picks in, and that was my system. And it was a system that I used for a long time, from 1998 to 2002, and it worked superb. Yeah, and other goalies started doing it.
So these are track spikes. How sharp are they? I mean, this is.
I mean, you're talking about what, 3-4 millimeters. There's different sizes, right? And I would always get I would always get told that, or checked. My stuff was always checked, because they wanted to make sure the spikes were not real long, and blah blah blah. It's a competition thing, right? So anytime you challenge the rules and you're within the rules, you're going to get looked on or looked upon. So I did that, and then I redesigned my goalie stick. I added some more teeth to it, if you will, like on the elbow, created a pick for the elbow, and that changed a lot of things for me from a mobility standpoint.
So
but the
elbow,
biggest,
so like you could put the stick basically like more flat.
so if you have a goalie stick that's flat on the ice, right on the elbow is half a U piece shape of metal with teeth. So it allowed me to put the blade down, cover, But if I needed to pivot, all I had to do was raise it a half an inch and I could grab ice and rotate, right? So I could still, yeah, I could still move around with the, basically I could move around with the blade on the ice, but still grip the ice, right? It was subtle
As
enough.
opposed to taking your blade of your stick.
Correct. As opposed, yeah, as opposed to lifting it up using the typical, the typical butt end of the stick. Yeah. So that was, but that was a change that I made, and people started using that too. But the biggest thing that I did was a long time ago, I had an idea of instead of using blades, metal blades, was doing a combination of plastic blades and metal blades so that I could slide sideways. And then if I wanted to get up on edge, I could grab the ice and push, go in whatever direction the blade was pointing to. So I figured that out. I developed a system that I could use my elbows, push off from one post and slide all the way across to the other post and then come back, So that system, it took me a while, but I got it. So what I did is I just put a plastic runner, very similar to the plastic material that's on the boards at a hockey rink, the plastic boards. You'll see that top on it where the glass goes on. I don't remember the material, but I would just take that and work on it so that it slid right inside and it just rested on the channel aluminum where the blade insert is. And then I would just attach the blade on the outside and raise it so that it was not touching on the ice, but would when I tilted, right? So that to me was a kind of a game changer. And I think now everybody does it or has something that allows them to move sideways, right? I think Jen Lee has it. I know Cash was using it, I think. So, yeah.
And you were successful as a goalie early on. I mean, I referred to you guys as the Bad News Bears, but you weren't really Engelberg, right? I mean, you were an all-star goalie.
Yeah, I won my share of awards since I started. I think my first tournament up in Ottawa, 1990, 91, I think it was. I won all-star goalie. So my first tournament ever, they said I was the best goalie, but granted, I was taking 60 shots, letting in maybe 4 goals, so yeah, those were just a different time. But no, I mean, I played that position when I was a kid. I always gravitated towards it, and to be able to do it, get out of my chair or put my crutches down, like I said in the speech, it just gives you that sense of freedom. So it just made me at a 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old young man, it made me a kid again. So I just gravitated towards that position and kept working on the craft.
So technical stuff, you guys are changing where the blades are. You're refining where your blades are.
Yep.
You had 9/11. You weren't able to train. What did this seem like? And there was a bit of a new system, right? I mean, Rick Middleton came in as the coach.
We had
he was implementing a system that he was talking about, like with the Bruins back in the early 70s. I mean, it's a decent selling point when you're saying, okay, I want Sylvester to be our Bobby Orr kind of thing.
And we trained where we could train, right? We would get together, 9/11 was happening. Everybody was freaked out about traveling. So, we gravitated to different parts of the country to train, whether it's upstate New York, Lake Placid, whether it was Texas, I don't remember exactly all the places we trained, but I think Rick, like I said in my speech, he made it simple for us. He there were some funny moments, where he, like you heard, you've probably heard this before or not, but I think our first practice, we were doing drills and he wanted us to skate backwards. Well, you can't really do that effectively in competition. You can kind of do it if you're screwing around, but to do it in a game, you can't, right? So once we got that nuance out of the way, he was able to make a read on how we skate, and how how the puck moves and the type of creativity that you can create on your own, right? Once he saw people doing their own dangles and using their offhand. Granted, there was only a few guys that could use their offhand and shoot. Today, I think every kid that's on the team can shoot left-handed or right-handed. But back then, he was just able to take it all in and then design something that was very simple. And so for him to say, I'm going to take my most maneuverable guy on the ice, and Sly has, he had the smarts too. He could share the puck, but it was his speed and maneuverability. that created a lot of openings for, on the weak side for a lot of guys, so he fed the puck to quite a few guys, and it worked. Yeah.
What's it like to bring somebody like Rick in? I mean, he was an all-star. He was almost 1,000 point guy, like a point per game guy in the NHL, but
Yeah.
he hadn't seen any of what you guys were doing. So he knew hockey, but as you said, the skating backwards part, didn't realize that part of it.
Right, right. It was, I mean, for me personally, I mean, the first thing you do is look him up, right? I looked the stats up. I knew who he was, right? I knew he was, and Rick, don't get mad at me if you're watching, if I call you an old timer, but he's a living god in Boston. I don't know if you like, I've been in Boston with him, and I swear they worship the floor he walks on. So he did something right over there. And so I looked him up, and I was impressed with his career. And then I looked up some videos, right? Once the announcement was made that he was our head coach, he had really soft hands. They called him Nifty.
Nifty. If your nickname is Nifty, like that's
Nifty.
a lot of people
Like,
have really appreciated what you do on the ice.
it's something like my dad would say. That's pretty nifty there. No, but yeah, his nickname was Nifty. So then I started looking at videos. I'm like, dude, this guy was pretty damn good. Like, he was a good, and we've never had a player coach. And when I say player coach, I'm talking about a guy that's played, elite level, right? I'm not talking about a coach that used to play, park and rec hockey, or played, a grassroots, somebody that played elite level. So it was my first time of all the coaches that I've had where it was something different about him. Like, he got certain things that we were feeling on the bench, the way he talked. It was like just, it was refreshing, to be honest. Right. So, but I remember the craziest move, and to this day I haven't seen this move, where I think somebody faked this. He fakes a slap shot from the top of the circle on the right side, and the defenseman goes down, and he doesn't go down and keep sliding like out of the way. He literally just is there in front of him, and Nifty just grabs the puck and literally just pops it right over him, and then comes in and goes top shelf. I've never seen that move. Right, so he fakes a slap shot, defenseman goes down, he skates over him, and then just takes the puck with him, and then it goes top shelf on the right corner. I was like, okay, that guy's good. Yeah, so I was ecstatic. I was excited. Never met him before, obviously, but Rick is one of the most humble and genuine individuals that I've ever met. And besides the fact that he was my coach, he's just a good human being, 100% good human being. Yeah.
Well, he came onto the stage with all of you guys, and I was there, because I was passing stuff out or whatever. And he shook my hand and introduced himself. I said, yeah, I'm from Massachusetts. I know who you are.
I swear, if you ever get the experience to go to Boston and hang out with him, oh my God, it's like President, it's like John F. Kennedy's walking into the room or something. It's just crazy. But I actually got invited to his number retirement ceremony, which was a few years back, and a few of us went out there, fellow teammates Kip St. Germain, Joe Howard, and Dan Henderson, and along with Tom. And so when we got there, we're going to be in the building, right? And we're hanging at the pre festivity parties in the arena, and there's Bobby Orr and Terry O'Reilly and all these guys. Like, holy crap, you got. Then we meet the actual team down in the locker room. It was just like crazy, right? So, the ceremony's starting, and all right, we're gonna go to a suite or something, whatever. Well, where's our tickets? And then Rick's like, no, you're in the ceremony. you're like in center ice with the rest of the family. And I'm like, what? So yeah, so us four teammates and including Tom, our assistant coach, yeah, we're sitting there on the circle. His family's on one quarter of the circles, we're in the other. We look over, and there's all like his old coach Don Cherry and teammates. And I'm like, this is bananas. Like, this, I can't believe this is happening. And then to be part of the ceremony, have the number raised to the rafters, and yeah, and then go to the after party. The after party was insane. And I got to tell you a story. So I'm wheeling back. I'm in my chair, wheeling back to the bar, I think it's called like the world's greatest or biggest bar. It's like 2 blocks from the arena, and it's 4 stories of bars. And as I'm wheeling to the bar, people and the fans in the street are yelling, "Goalie, goalie." And I'm like, what? And he literally just introduced me as the goaltender on the gold medal winning team, So he didn't say anything about me. There's no video. And I still have random, I mean, that's how avid the Boston sports fans are as it relates to anything that's sports. If you just give them a crumb, they eat the whole cookie. Like, it's just like, so I was just like laughing and super like, this is crazy. So I'm wheeling to the bar. Yeah. So intense. Boston's intense. Yeah.
But it shows so much respect that he had for you guys and for the experience that he had with you, because in so many ways it's easy to separate the NHL from the Paralympics, and one is way more important, but he's putting them on an equal par in a lot of ways. He's bringing you guys to what, the greatest celebration of his career.
Yeah, and I got that. Like, I measured it and said, this is crazy. Like, he's got so much love for us, and so do we, that we're his family. We're part of his family, and he's talked about us. He talked about the movie that they're making, and I mean, to put it all together in your speech and wrap it all up like that, it's mad love. Like, it's just, you're right, Chris. It's unreal. I'll tell you one thing that I haven't told a lot of people. Only a few people know this. Probably now, I don't know how many. But
we're blasting out to millions here. So tell it well.
So when we won the shootout, and there's a lot of video of like where I'm skating towards Chris Mans, one of my defensemen, and I dropped my gloves and my equipment, and he dropped his stuff, and then Rick is running behind him as well, right? So we're all coming together, and so me and Chris just like boom, we drop. Then Rick jumps on top of us, and I got my goalie mask on, so his face is right here, and I can kind of see him. But I'm also raising my finger up in the air for whatever reason. My instinct was like, I gotta get my hand up and go like number one, So as that's going, Chris is screaming, and Rick yells in my ear, "This is my Stanley Cup." And that I started crying like a baby. I was like, because he's been 3 times? Yeah. I think in the finals, and hasn't won it. He yelled that. He said that in my ear, and I was like, explosion of tears. Yeah. So that confirms what you just said, Chris, is that he holds us this experience in the sport and the newfound family that he has as at its highest regard, right? So what an honor, right? Crazy.
How much did he change the way that you guys looked at yourselves, right? I mean, this is a guy who's getting his number raised to the rafters, and he's now leading your team. Did that bring more confidence? Did that bring a swagger for you as the team that's getting in the back door?
Yeah, we did. Well, we didn't get to, the thing that we didn't experience is we experienced practice Rick Middleton, right? We knew it was better. We knew he was a very special individual. And even Tom Moulton, let's not forget about Tom Moulton, our assistant coach.
Yeah.
They're best friends. Like they're connected at the hip. Tom has a hockey background as well. Tommy's a little bit more fire, right? So Rick I'm not saying he's a softie, because he's 100% a competitor, but he's just a more gentler, he get mad, and he's mad, but when Tommy got mad, you knew he was mad. So to have those two good cop, bad cop scenarios, it was a good mixture of two coaches, right? But they both were able to pick up when we had a shitty practice, and they would tell us, Tom would say one thing, and he'd challenge us, right? And we would come back and say, "Hey, Tom, was that better? Like, you're right. We came out, we dogged it. It was a shitty practice, blah, blah, blah." And then Rick would also chime in a different way, right? So, but we didn't experience none of that except for just practice scenarios, right? Practice at late at night, early in the morning, whatever, right? So to get to a tournament for the first time, right? Literally first time
And this is the Paralympic tournament that you're talking about for the first time.
in your backyard at the E Center, which we just shit the bed in 2 years prior, um, to get fired up for that first game against Japan and actually beat them, and then come back in the locker room and have him, he did his pregame speech, was very simple and chill, but then come back and to act the same way, like, okay, we got one, we got 5 more to go. And so even in the way that he talked about just winning a game, to us, we were ecstatic, but he just kept it, he was level headed. He kept it, this is great that we won this first game, but we have a mission, a bigger mission, right? And it's one step at a time. One of the things that he did was he had an easel with basically sheets of paper, and he had written down all the teams we're going to play before going into the gold medal round. And so, he had the MVP of the game come over and put the score and just cross it off, and then flip the sheet. So I think psychologically, that was his way of saying, this is how we're going to do this. And, we're going to methodically, get to, work one team, beat them, and then flip the script, forget about that team and go to the next team. And prepare for that.
You're supposed to be here, it sounds like, is what he was saying. But when you think about it, you guys had won one international game prior to going into Salt Lake. So you beat Japan. That's 100% more games that you have just won.
Correct. That's 2 games now, right? And so 4 years later, so it just, you had a sense of patriotism. Patriotism was overflowing because of 9/11, right? And because it was Salt Lake, and because it was in your backyard, because your security detail was very high, right? Everywhere we looked, we had guys following us that said they weren't following us, right? So you take all that in, and it's an advantage. It gets you pumped up, so to get that first game under our belt and beat Japan, who I remember the game against Japan in Nagano that we lost to, that we were supposed to win. That was a weird game because I think the emperor came in, or somebody came in that was high up, and they stopped the game for like 5 minutes until he sat down. So that, I've never seen that in a hockey game. So we had the momentum, and then we shit the bed after that. But that's another story, right? So I don't know. Rick just had to have Rick in real time, game time, see how he works, see how, I'm in the net, right? So I don't have the advantage of seeing how he works the bench, but talking to the guys that were there right after the game, I would notice some of the line changes. I would notice some of the things he would yell out, some things he'd yell out at me. But a lot of the guys that were on the bench, coming in and out, they appreciated both of them and how they manage the box, right, and get everybody in and out, and remind everybody of the system, and just got everybody up, So yeah.
How about the dynamic of the team? You said that the team out of Chicago had been a progressive team. Bunch of guys on that team ended up in this team.
Yeah.
You can't help but separate you guys, or you can't help but include you guys in with the miracle team of 1980, right?
100%. Yeah, you could argue there was there was no Minnesota East, Massachusetts. What do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for?
The dichotomy of the two, or
yeah, well, they hated
the rivalry between
the rivalry. That's the word I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
There was no Minnesota, Massachusetts, Ivy League kind of rivalry, but there was a Midwest, right? There was a Blackhawks club, and we're the best, and I don't care who you are, we're the best, right? So there was a rivalry of anybody who was not a Blackhawk. I was a Blackhawk until the year prior, but yeah, there was that. There was a rivalry within the team. Yes, I'll definitely confirm that.
Did you have that Eruzione moment, right? That game when they when they got beaten when they were in Sweden or something like that, and Herb Brooks was making them do sprints, and who do you play for? And Eruzione finally said, you know,
Well, I
I play
didn't
for
have it.
USA.
Yeah, I didn't have it on the national team level, right? Because of 9/11, right? Because of Rick. But there was an instance one time where at the club level we were playing with, I was playing with the Blackhawks, and we were in Europe on a tournament. We were playing national teams. We were playing like Sweden, some of the powerhouses, Norway, Canada, and we were kicking their ass, right? So, but like the score was already like 10-0 or 10-1, and our club coach at the time, wanted just to keep racking the points up. So it was the opposite kind of, Herb Brooks moment. It was like, okay, we're beating these guys, like, we're beating them to death. Let's just ease up on the pedal. He didn't want to do that. So he would I just remember like going in the third period, and we're like up 10-1 or something, or 12 or whatever. And he was just yelling at us like, you guys are getting soft. You guys are slowing down. What's wrong with you guys? So it was just weird. Like, it wasn't like, you're kidding me, right? But he was the coach. And so, we had to put a few more in the net, I guess. But as far as like the national team, to have like a really deep down kind of moment where you're like, like, wow, like this, we had, I think just the experience of having that rivalry between, Blackhawk players and non-Blackhawk players, that in itself was incredible, right? To have that rivalry. It wasn't a rift. I'm not going to say it's a rift, but it was a very, very divisive type of environment, and to come together, during Salt Lake, on top of everything else, on top of the new coach, on top of the new system, and to win that first game. I mean, it's incredible, right? And that softens it up, right? That makes people buy into what Rick was trying to accomplish. They say winning, solves everything, right? Or makes everything feel better. It did. I mean, winning the first game, brought us together a little more. Winning the second game brought us together even more, right? So, I think by the gold medal game, we were a very cohesive unit, even more so on the ice than we were off the ice.
Did you have to believe as the national team that you were actually better than the Blackhawks team was on its own? Was that part of the?
Yeah, I think what we came to realize was that we needed each other. That without some of the guys from the East Coast or from Dallas, we needed each other, right? So I needed to be the goalie that I was, and I needed my defensemen to be who they were. And my defensemen, they weren't all Blackhawk, club Blackhawk players. There was a mixture. So I think, like I said, as we began to believe in the system and have the system prove to us that we could win, it just made all that chatter and noise kind of go away, right? So, but it definitely brought us together, right? And even in our reunion that we had, some of the conversations got deep, right? Which will be in a documentary somewhere. We had all these cameras with us, but I think, I made a comment that it was just nice to be back with my brothers that I hadn't seen, in some of them, in 20 years, and that the size of the moment, now that you reflect on it 20 years ago, when you see what the outcome of that moment was from a grassroots perspective, and the number of clubs that exploded after, really made that rivalry chatter, irrelevant. And I actually looked at some of the Blackhawk players, I don't know exactly how I said it, but I basically said, I appreciate you more today as my teammate and my brother, regardless of what happened in the past, is basically what I was saying. And as I was looking at some of the Blackhawk players, they were like looking at me, like nodding their head. Right? So we connected. We had a moment.
Well, you hope you had a moment, because you won the gold medal.
Yeah, we had a big moment.
I mean, the ultimate underdog that wins the gold medal, but then you got inducted into the Hall of Fame for that amazing moment. And you helped start a run where, I mean, obviously you took a little dip in 2006 and won the
Yeah,
bronze, but
yeah.
it's been gold medals for the US Sled Hockey Team ever since.
Yeah, I knew. I mean, I was there at the beginning when John started the sport. I accidentally ran into him. That's how I got involved. But I also helped him off the ice with all the administrative stuff, the letter writing to USA Hockey, schmoozing, the lunches with Walter Bush and Peter Lindbergh. And so from an administrative standpoint, I was also kind of his right hand, and so to see, I knew that the goal was to have us someday be run by our NGB, USA Hockey. They're not perfect by any means, but they, on paper, they have a really good structure. They're probably one of the best organized NGBs in any sport.
And that's national governing body.
National
So
government, yeah, sorry. Yep.
with the able-bodied national governing body, which in a lot of ways is, I mean, you talk about Paralympic sport, it's the highest level of sport, and
Correct.
you want to be included with the highest level of sport.
Correct. Right.
And
So
obviously with Rick and Tommy too, you had some great coaches who were involved on the highest level as well. So they expected from you what they expected from any other hockey players that they're working with, any other top level hockey players. Like, hey, don't give me excuses, like do what you're supposed to do.
right. So I knew that the long-term vision, right, for John and where the sport should be is under, national governing body of hockey, and in this case, USA Hockey. So I think combined with the explosion of athletes, of kids and clubs that started after we won gold, to have that administrative side, kind of fall in line after 2006 and eventually have them take over, I knew it was a good thing, right? And so to be included in that organization, to be registered like any other hockey player, right? To have a national tournament to compete for at all the levels, it's come a long way, and there's a lot of people that made the sport bigger and better after we left the game, and I recognize those people as well. But yeah, I feel like a proud papa, to be honest.
Well, take us back a little bit to 2002 and building that momentum. So you beat Japan first,
Yeah.
and then you flip the sheet, and then and you keep winning. Do you keep believing that you're going to win? That's part of being an athlete, isn't it? That you
Yeah, I mean, I
get on the ice and believe you're supposed to
yeah,
win.
I mean, if we train so hard, right, and to have a roster of 15 guys come together, team sports, I think, is a little bit more difficult to get to that moment, right, where everybody has to be on the same page, everything has to be aligned, everybody has to believe. So going into those games, I knew we could win a gold medal. It's how we did it that freaks me out, right? And so
What do you mean by that?
well, you talk about the rivalry, yeah, right. You talk about the lack of competition, post 9/11, not seeing any international competition at all, not anything.
So you were your own rivalry. I mean, practices,
Pretty much.
this is effectively like a scrimmage.
Pretty,
This is the rivalry.
pretty much, right? To have a new coach, sets of coaches, to just come off a really bad experience at the same East Center, right, in Salt Lake. You had all this stuff going on in my head. Personally, I had all this stuff going on in my head. And obviously, once it's game time, you shove it out and you get in the zone. And then to have Rick break down each game and if we win, turn the sheet, MVP of the player gets the puck and he gets to go over the easel and do whatever he wants marking wise, and then turn the sheet. So that to me was like a really easy psychological reset for the next game. I mean, I do that anyways because if I let a goal in, I forget about it really quick, right? I don't let it bother me, and so I can't remember if it was Norway that we played the second game or if it was Canada. Canada was, I want to say that Canada might have been our third game. I'd have to look it up. But I remember about the Canada game was that Pierre Pichette, one of my all-time, incredible goalie for Team Canada. He was kind of in the back end of his career. but still good. I mean, that dude had an incredible glove hand, and I looked up to him. So we kind of went back and forth in tournaments, this and that, and then but to actually light him up for, I think I don't care if the score is 5-1, and to actually retire him officially because I think they changed goalies after the second, where what's his name got his start. I can't remember. Single lamp from Team Canada, Paul Rosen. Yeah, my counterpart, Paul Rosen. That's how his career started, with an ass whooping. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but that to me was a huge eye opener, because Canada and Norway were favored to be in the gold medal game. So to come in and beat up on Canada the way we did, and the crowd was crazy intense. Like it was so loud in there. I'll never forget that. I mean, we just lit them up.
Do you have that moment where you're like, we seem like we're pretty good? Do you think we're as good as we think we are?
Like I said earlier, I think that Norway game, for me personally, where we won 2-1, it was a low scoring game, obviously low shots, maybe I think I faced 8 or 12 shots, but that was an intense game. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of huge scoring opportunities, good saves by by myself and the other goaltender. That to me, once we got past that game, I was like, we're onto something here. Me personally, right in my head, I'm like, this is the hump that I needed to get over, and we're in a good spot. So psychologically, for me personally, that was the game that told me that we were about to do something special. Yeah.
Could you believe that going into the gold medal game? Because you hadn't been there. Like, I guess some of you have been there in other tournaments, in other places, against some of the same competition, but not as the US team.
I don't think I appreciated the level of what was about to happen. I knew it was a gold medal game, but I didn't. It was important, and I reflected on it. I remember going in the box before the game started and just hanging out and letting my thoughts, take me on my journey right from where I started. And it was really quiet in the rink. But for me personally, the gold medal game for me didn't really start until the game started. Like, for me, the gold medal game brought me back to where I started, my roots, my parents, my family, volunteers, number of coaches, all the people that helped you along the way. I don't think I realized the magnitude of that game until we dropped the puck, right? You get the heebie-jeebies before the games, and everybody has their superstition. But I kind of looked at it as a, another, not another gold medal game, just another, hey, we can go for all the marbles here. It wasn't until we got into the game, right, that I started warming up. I started peeking out and looking at the 8,000 fans or whatever that was there, the standing room only section, my family. That's when it started to really, really, really sink in. And then I had to shut it off, right, to get into game mode, right?
I showed up at that game. So my events had ended, my skiing events had ended. And my girlfriend at the time and I went to that game, and there were 10 family members staying at my house, and they were exhausted from going back and forth to the mountain. So none of them wanted to go down. So we had extra tickets.
Yes.
And people are trying to scalp tickets in the parking lot. They're offering us, 3 times, 4 times, face value or whatever. And I was like, no, we can't do that. But people are trying to, how flattering is that?
It's crazy.
People want to pay more than face value to get in.
Do you remember how much tickets were?
I don't remember.
They were like
$25 or something.
Yeah, they were like $25. And so I think Chris Vance pointed out that he's like, he comes in the locker room. He's like, yo, you're not going to believe this, but some family members are outside. There's like some dudes selling tickets for like $70, $80. So
how flattering is that? Like, that's the most flattering thing possible.
Yeah, after the game and all the hubbub and everything was over, to have my family there was, it's a fairy tale ending for me personally. But to look at the crowd and see some dudes with their shirts off, kick ice. I think there was some kids had to have the beer flow in, I mean, it was a hockey game, and I had never felt it to that level, right? Where it felt like a genuine hockey game. Most of our games are low in attendance, right? Anywhere you go. So to have this thing just rocking and loud, to have I can't remember the announcers that were chosen for our game, to have those guys hang out with us and actually try our equipment, try skating, try getting in the net, and to have them announce the game the way they did, and then to look up and just see this mob of people, it was insane. Like it'll be forever etched into my psyche, my brain. Yeah.
The mob of people, the scalpers. Norway scores first, though.
Yes.
What
Yep.
did that do to you mentally?
You forget about it. It was, I think if I replay the shot, I'm trying to replay the shot. I think it was Pedersen came in right down the middle and he went from left to right. And I think what's his name? I can't remember his name, not Helgi Bjornstad, but they got up, right? You forget about that goal and you talk to your defenseman and like, all right, let's get it back. Right.
So you believed. I mean, you're still there.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Okay, we've done our Cinderella thing.
Yeah, you can't. Like I said, I'm really good at forgetting about the last goal I let in. So I just like, all right, tip your cap. Let's go get it. I just yelled at my defenseman, and when I say yelled, words of encouragement. Let's go. Let's get it back. And boy, did we get it back. We got what, three goals.
We went up 3-1. I mean, Joe had 2 within 67 seconds, right?
Yeah, and the building was loud. It was crazy loud. It was one of the moments where I'm skating to the corner right after the goal, and I just come back to my net to reset. And I just remember, I usually never look at the crowd, but I had to look at the crowd because it was so loud. And I just remember people going bananas, So then I got back to my crease reset, and away we went. And then they came back and tied it, and there was a couple of defensive breakdowns that we had, a couple of mistakes, some turnovers, and they are who they are. I mean, they're not the defending gold medalists for no reason, right? They had some very powerful skaters and very smart skaters. So to get back to 3-3 was intense. It was super intense, and it's kind of funny because before the game, I asked Rick what the shootout list came, who was going to shoot. I just want to know. Like in my head, I just I've been in so many shootouts. Like, hey, who's on the menu? And he tells me, and I'm like, yeah, good. And I said jokingly to him, I was like, yeah, if it comes to this, we got it. It's in the bag, So so it came to that, but the overtime, I do remember the overtime. As a matter of fact, one of the hits or penalties that Norway had took one of their best shooters out of the shootout list. Yeah, so he could not be on the list if you ended in a penalty in overtime. So that took him out. And so I thought that was interesting. I didn't think much of it other than, man, he's not gonna shoot, be on the shootout. And if I replay the shootout, right, the first 2 shots were good shots, man. Pedersen came in. I knew exactly what he was going to do. He does it all the time, and I just couldn't get a piece of the puck. And then Helgi came. Helgi is the one out of all the shots I faced, of the shots I faced in the shootout. He's the one that really just fooled me, right? He gave me a head shoulder fake, and I went one way, he went the other. And when I came back to the bench after the first 2 goals, I remember Rick looking over at me and saying, "Are you going to stop anything?"
Valid question.
Yes, and that got me fired up. It did. It got me juiced up, and I went back and I was a little bit more aggressive on the angles. I came out a little further on the last few shots, and I think the last shooter I didn't give him a whole lot to shoot at. Right, hit the outside of the post. So yeah, the rest is history. But yeah, that's how it went down.
Rick had said, he put together his list, but he said he didn't think he'd need it. Put together the shootout list, but didn't think it would come to that.
Yeah.
But then it came to it. How heightened is that on an emotional level that you get there you've played to a tie through 3 periods, through a 10-minute overtime, and then it's 5 shooters. And that's just mano y mano, right? Just the shooter and the goalie, and that's it, which is so different than the rest of hockey.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you had an advantage in terms of who you are?
Yeah, I mean, I was like I 100% believed, right, in my statement before the game that I told Rick that, hey, we got this if it comes down to shootout. I mean, I believed that. I believed I was the best goaltender in that tournament, right? Some games the puck looked as big as a watermelon and as slow as molasses, right? So when you're in the zone, I was in the zone in that tournament. I think I let 3 goals in. I don't remember what my goals against, but it was like 9-7, 97 something. So it was
4 that and then 3 that game, right?
yes, yeah, correct. Yes, yes. So yeah, so it was I I got this, and when it came to the shootout, I didn't really think I mean, was it stressful a little bit, but you're in the zone, you kind of just like go through your routines. Who's our first shooter? Here we go. Get out on the ice, come back in the box, and just rotate, in and out, and try to try to get a piece of the puck. So, um, it just to me, it didn't feel procedurally, it didn't feel any different than any other shootout I've been in. Right. Granted, the moment was intense, but I did the same thing I do every time. So
When
yeah,
you saved him, and Lonnie had the opportunity to be the hero, right?
he did. Yeah,
And
yeah,
couldn't convert in the last shot, right? If he had made that last shot for the US, then that's it, then you win. But then you had to save the last shot from Norway in order to win.
right.
Did that moment feel like a tectonic shift, in terms of where you were as a team, being the US team, being a team that had won one game coming into it,
Yeah, yeah.
looking at it and going, this is the future, this is the team moving forward, and now we're a powerhouse. Did it feel like that, or what did it feel
It
like?
did. I mean, it's certainly, after, right? So to your point, yes, Lonnie could have had the world at his feet if he would have made that shot. We tease him about it, could have, who knows where he'd be today, 20 years later. But after the tournament, was over, it was like, man, we're the shit. Like, it's going to be hard for, who's going to hang with us for a while. Like, you just have that feeling. You're so confident. As a matter of fact, I think it's in the book, right? But one of the things that I wanted to do personally is to go stick this gold medal in other people's faces that said we would never amount to shit, you know? So,
Who are these people?
well, just athletes from other countries, Canada, I'm not going to name names, but they know who they are. Norway, some Swedish guys, So most of the teams, everybody on the team had family, right? So some of my teammates, after the post celebration, after the after party, they went back to the hotels either with their family or whatever, right? A handful of us went back to the village because there's the after party at the village, and that's where all the hockey players and slot hockey players are going to be. So I wanted to go to the after party. And so my wife at the time obviously was upset with me. My kids were upset with me, but I wanted to go stick it in their face and just say, you know what? Hey, what do you think of this around my neck? Like, remember what you said like years ago? How's this look on me? Look all right? And that's what I did. I went and stuck it right in their faces, and they had fun with it. I actually called them out in some, I don't remember exactly how I said it, but next thing you know, I'm surrounded by Canadians and Norwegians and their staff. I'm just having a good old time. But it was really my way of saying, here's for all the shit talk and all the stuff that we had to fight for and struggle, and we made it. We're on top. So I'm going to go rub it in your face. And that's so to your point, right? When you say about how did you feel, was there that tectonic shift? Yeah, there was. For me personally, there was. So I want to go stick it in your face. Yeah. So
How much pride do you take now looking at the team, like looking at the team this year, what they gave up 1 goal? I mean, that was crazy dominant.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I take pride. It's different times though, and I don't want to minimize what the accomplishments of the last, 3 teams that won gold medals, but certainly I'm proud of the program. Certainly, it shows how much work we put into it. It also shows the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The fact that we can go find these incredible athletes, right? High functioning athletes that been playing sled hockey since they were 4, 5, or 7 or whatever, right? So they've been playing for a number of years. So to have
Grassroots part of it, yeah, development,
right, to have that grassroots element that we didn't have as much, right? It speaks volumes about what we did and what the current, NGB, USA Hockey and its staff and the volunteers and all the clubs, what they're doing. I mean, it's a tribute to them, right? To grab the best athletes from all your grassroots clubs. But when you look at the competition today, there is no competition really. It's when you go into a tournament as a team and you face 12 shots the entire tournament, give me that. Like, I would have loved to have 12 shots the entire tournament, average 1 or 2 shots a game. I put a cone in the net, you'd probably still win. But I'm teasing. But at the same time, it's like I want to see competition. I want to see USA Hockey Canada. I want to see USA, Russia, Norway, whatever. Right? I want to see a good nail biting game, and I haven't seen that in a long time. Right? So the program is it's healthy, but all the other countries are not in a good. I don't think they're in a good spot competition wise. I think Canada. Some of the guys overstayed their welcome as far as age, so there's going to be a big shift there. I expect the next 2-3 years a rebuild. I also look at countries like Norway and Sweden, who are smaller in demographics. What are they going to do? Right now it's a high functioning sport. There's no point system in it. Where are they going to go find these, high functioning athletes, amputees, whatever, right? And inject them right in the same path that maybe some of the young athletes in America have. They probably won't. So I don't know. Like, the future is, I'm curious to see where the sport goes from a competition level, right? And from USA Hockey and grassroots, we're good. We're going to be solid for a long time. It's that international competition that some of the hockey purists would argue that we need to do something, right? What that is, I have no clue, right? And our able-bodied programs have experienced that. Women's program, Canada, US, all the time. It's gotten better. Sweden, Finland, other countries, have kind of broken into that top 2. But in sled hockey, it's the lack of competition, I think, is missing. Right, once you get to those gold medal round games, yeah.
Until you get to the gold medal round games, exactly. But I mean, that's an entirely different conversation. We can have you back for another conversation, talk about a point system, talk about what we might do to change the game in order to make it more competitive and help that grassroots, that development in other countries. You talked about the gold medal. You talked about bringing it to the village. Where have you put that glass trophy that you got for your Hall of Fame induction?
It arrived yesterday evening. It's still in the mail package from UPS, I think, or FedEx. It's sitting on my kitchen counter. I'm going to wait till I turn 55, either tonight or tomorrow morning, and I'm going to open it up and just take it in, hold it for a little bit, maybe take a nap with it, maybe take it to the bar. I don't know. I might take it to the bar right after this.
Well, you might have to give us an update as to what happened. Early happy birthday, Manny. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a total pleasure to have you, man. Really.
And just one more thing before I dip out. Again, we have a book coming out in December called Hockey's Hidden Gods. And then we also have a movie that is it's called Tough Sledding, that's in the making. And you can visit toughsleddingthemovie.com to kind of keep up on it, right, and see where it is. But thanks, Chris, again. Thank you.
No, total pleasure. Great to have you. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. We appreciate you coming back every week. We hope you've enjoyed this. Again, as I say every week, the greatest gift you can give us is to tell your friends. Tell them to tune in. Tell them to like us. Tell them to follow us. This will be a traditional podcast, and we will look forward to having another great guest next week. Thank you all. Take care and see you soon.